Alright, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna have a little late night chat. Um, Somebody told me recently, they said your videos are like, what is ASMR in a weird way. And I thought, I could see that, I guess. Because it's like you're here with me in the room just talking. But, no. I don't want to smile, my teeth are getting yellow because I'm smoking and not brushing them. That's exactly what I'm doing. And I'm shaking the camera as well. But randomly on this night during my this journey that I'm essentially vlogging, for some reason I got in a very panicked mind state and I said, well, what used to cheer me up if I was in a bad state of mind? Number one, oldest standby in the book, listen to the Beatles.
I need a fix 'cause I'm going down.
I love the Beatles. I'm a huge fan to the point where I listen to them like once a month. Some people get burnt out and they never listen to a band again. But for me, it's about once a month. I'll listen to 2 or 3 obscure songs. Anyways, this isn't interesting, but it is pertinent because I wanted to make this video and say how exactly I became an addict from the start. Now, a lot of people I know, and this does tie into the Beatles for me, a lot of people I know claim like, oh, I was peer pressured and I slowly built a habit. Not me. I think I was 16 or 15 years old, and I made it my absolute goal to spend my lunch, whatever, what, 20 bucks a week for lunch money on weed. I wanted to find it. I not only wanted to find it and do it, I wanted to find it and do it all day. I used to, even as like a 16-year-old, if somebody brought like booze into school, and we would drink it in a homeroom before first period. I was into doing that. I wanted to be high all day, every day. Um, and at the time, and I hate to point fingers, and there's nothing worse than the old argument where people say, music causes this, music makes people do drugs, and video games make people violent. Both of those things, I don't like to argue for them necessarily, but I think there's a little bit of truth in it. Like, because for me, I was really into music, film, and art at that age. I had not started writing songs yet, but I was such an intense lover of music. And so I'm essentially saying, being a huge Beatles fan at that age, it had a lot to do with it because, in my mind, I thought when the Beatles wrote Sgt. Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour, I assumed that the drugs gave them that creative spark. And that may be true. But now that I'm older, I kind of realized, you know what, maybe it had a little bit to do with it, but I was misguided at that age. But I used to lay in bed during my early weed days, and I would listen to Strawberry Fields and A Day in the Life just over and over. And I was like, I want to be at that level. How can you write something so beautiful? And I wasn't even a writer yet, which is the weird part. But so I got my lunch money, and I found sort of a dude, I guess a kid in my school, who was kind of notorious for being stoned all the time. So I kind of sniffed it out like a loose hunting dog, just looking around. I said, hey, can I get some like weed? I didn't know what the weights or the grams or the dubs or the prices were. He said, yeah, I'll drop it on the floor. And we were in English class together. I gave him the 20, he dropped it on the floor. And I went to my, so I had a group of friends, but I kind of broke the drug addicty ones out of it and was like, hey, come with me. Like, I got weed, man. I got weed. And we would, of course, go, me, my two friends, my sister, we would go outside. We didn't even know how to make one of those foil pipes that you make with the pan and you'll dip at the end. So we used like a car part. It's like a nut or something. It goes down and then it gets tight at the end, and that's where you'd put it. So we're like burning our lip, not knowing what to expect really. And some people say you don't get high your first time when you smoke weed, which I don't remember if that was true, but I do remember it did enhance itself after one or two or three times. But me and my sister and my friend sat around and smoked and we were getting high. And I put the song Revolution 9 on. I don't for that song, I remember right before I put it on, this kid said to me, he's like, "Hey, can you not put Revolution 9 on right now? Like that song is creepy enough when you're sober. Why are you putting that on?" So I put it on anyway. And we're just sitting there like listening to Revolution 9, smoking, and my sister just starts laughing like a maniac and pointing at everybody. And I just remember laughing at this, watching it go down, and seeing this kid who wasn't even our friend really, but he was just like, I'm getting kind of creeped out. I think I'm gonna go." I remember him specifically saying that, "Ow, this light hurts my eye." But it became more and more prevalent in my life to get weed, and I started in a self-destructive fashion. I started wanting to be a 24/7 addict. I wasn't necessarily graduating into harder stuff at this time, but I wanted it. And it had a deep connection with the Beatles for me, for some reason. I don't know exactly why. And another thing for me was that I think, and I don't, when you're a teenager in high school, you're not emotionally mature enough to really diagnose yourself or understand why your emotions are so catastrophic and why you have boners all the time, essentially. But when you get older, you become more mature, you start to notice your own patterns. But when you're young, it's kind of why young relationships, like 18-year-old boyfriend and girlfriend, they are they have toxic, hateful, fist punching relationships, screaming because they're too young to really even understand their own emotional conscious. So I think at that age, I was probably getting some depression, some anxieties. I remember when I got into the ninth grade, all of a sudden, I think it was hormonal or something, but I became like, if I got called on in class, I'd be like really nervous. And I remember my face would get red. So I kind of started becoming this cagey, nervous kid. And also, I was really addicted to RuneScape, which was kind of the intro to my addiction to playing video games all day. Just consumption, consumption, consumption. That's all I wanted was consumption, nonstop, constantly. So I think I was trying to mask that, whatever neuroses I was having at that age, 16, I guess. And I remember thinking, everyone I know who smokes weed seems like they don't care about anything. They pretty much ignore all their problems. They don't care that you know they're high. They don't care. They don't care. And I think I wanted really badly at that age to not care. I'm sure if you psychoanalyzed me any deeper, you might find some childhood issues, maybe. I don't know. But overall, I had a pretty good childhood. So I'm one of those, I'm one of those people that just became an addict for no reason, with no real serious early, you know, behavioral consequences. So I wanted to not care. I associated it with writing good music and the Beatles. And also, I was a good kid up until I was about 12. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my mom and my older brother, who's kind of like my idol in a way. He would visit from college and we would sit around talking in the kitchen. My mom's doing dishes. I'm sitting there at the tender age of 11 or 12. And I remember my brother was telling these stories about him and his friends, like throwing rocks at cars and cops chasing them. And there was this funny story where my brother's friend, they were throwing rocks at cars, and my brother's friend was peeing, and the cops started chasing him, and he was peeing as he was running. And my mom was laughing so hard at these stories. And I think I was at the age where I was lost at the age of 11, dude, having existential crises and stuff. So I think at that very moment, it was a very pivotal moment in my life. I said, I'm going to break as bad as I possibly can. I'm going to break every rule I can. I hated authority and I wanted to fight everybody. Even though I was a little guy, I was always the smallest kid. Nowadays, I guess I'm like lower to average, like 5'7" or something. So I don't know if I've grown out of that. Am I still five? Yeah, 5'7" is pretty short. So literally the next day, I went into school and I found this bully kid, uh, who I didn't even like, but we became close friends, and we were super gluing quarters to lockers, and we did like a couple thousand. Like we destroyed the lockers somehow. Like they could not get that. Well, I guess we didn't destroy them, but it was public property damage. Like you can't get that super glue shit out of little holes in lockers and stuff. So me and my friend just did that and told everybody. And at that moment, everybody was like, "Oh man, those kids they don't care about nothing. They're bad, man. Those kids are bad. Bad." That was horribly cringe. So we did that, and then it got to a point where I was suspended 15 times within from the age 12 to 14. And I wish I could call my middle school. I might do that tomorrow and ask for my record. Like, can I look at all the data? I might do that. I wonder if they'll just give it to me if I show them like my ID or something. But I kept all my suspension stuff in this Duracell battery. Like when you buy somebody a gift for Christmas, a bunch of batteries, it came in a big Duracell tin, and they were covered. I had all my suspension papers in that Duracell battery, and they had blood on them because we would play bloody knuckles, where you put your knuckles on the table and somebody goes like this with a quarter, and you're bleeding all over the place. So at a young age, I wanted to be, I guess, a bad boy. I wanted to impress people. I wanted notoriety, even if it was in a bad way. And I hated authority so bad. And to be honest, I've carried that into my adult life. Like, I'm extremely libertarian and I hate authority. So I kind of carried that. But combine all of that into like tween to teenage maturity, puberty. I was just a mess of like identity crisis and wanting to be this artist that wrote good music and I learned immediately I can be anybody I want, but I can only do it if I'm blocking out whatever is whatever's causing my neuroses at that age. Anxiety, depression, I guess. I don't my whole life I don't necessarily know if I would be clinically called depressed or anxious. I mean, I get anxious sometimes and I get down, but I wouldn't say I have depression. But I remember when I was about 15 during the summer, I was playing RuneScape all day. Me and my brother in a room. He was playing Call of Duty on his headset. I was playing RuneScape all day. And I started to wake up at 2 in the I might have told this story already, so sorry. I'd wake up at 2 in the afternoon and take sleeping pills at 5. And I still do weird stuff like that to this day. But I remember my brother looking at me and going, "Dude, what's going on with you? Like, what? You've been awake for 3 whole hours. So you're trying to go to sleep." So there was definitely something mental going on there. But I think everybody has that, and a lot of people who had that didn't become addicts. But people like you and I have this eternal need for self destruction and hedonism. And I was gonna say I wish I didn't get into this stuff and drugs and all that. But you know what? I don't think I would change anything because I've had a pretty hectic life, and I'm kind of proud of what I've done. To be honest, I haven't done a lot, but I have written over 1,000 songs. Like this isn't even my music channel really. And so that's like my one creative thing I'm proud of. But it doesn't matter. It's not like anybody knows about it. It's not like I ever made it. I didn't make it. I just made music and uploaded it to YouTube for years with no real, what do you call it? Views. I can't think of the word right now. I'm tired. So I think we've covered my tween years, my teen years, getting into weed because I like the Beatles, blah, blah, blah. Um, Eventually senior year, and mind you, I had never had a girlfriend really my whole childhood. Well, like, middle school girlfriends, you just go up to them and say hi in the morning, and that's it. That's that's what dating was in middle school. I had that, but I think I was afraid of girls. Honestly, I think I still carry that with me to this day to some degree. I think I'm a little bit more confident now because I don't have a lot to lose. But I was kind of self-conscious. Like everybody. Everybody's a little bit self-conscious. But I was basically senior year, I was working at a nursing home, and I loved that job. It was so good. It was so I was making $10 an hour during the housing crisis. Everybody else was making 7.25 at Taco Bell, but I was making good money with no real obligations, financial obligations. So I was just smoking weed all the freaking time, all the time. I used to smoke in school with my friend in the most stupid ways ever. Now looking back, I'm like, well, I did get caught, but how did I not get caught every day? I used to go into the bathroom with my backpack and I had this big yellow funnel, like to put oil in a car, and I shoved it with dryer sheets and put a band-aid at the end. And I remember my brother was in the room and he found out I smoked weed, and I did not want him to know that, but he eventually caught on. And I was like, "Hey, look, I built this thing. It's called a sploof. When you blow the weed smoke into it, it'll smell like delicious laundry." And he said, "Okay, do it. Light it up." So I lit it up. And I said, "What does it smell like?" And he went, "Like weed." So I would go into the bathroom and uh, I would go into the bathroom and light up my little mini bong. And as soon as I would take a hit, I would cover it. I'd blow into the spoof, into the toilet, and I would hit flush. I had no understanding of like the laws of gravity or physics. So in my mind, I'm like, blow smoke into toilet, flush smoke down. It wasn't flushing. What the hell was I thinking? So, so the whole bathroom probably smelled like weed and laundry. But I also started to do Adderall during this time, which I thought about making a whole video about Adderall, like how I got into it. But to make a long story short, or a short story long, one of my friends, I took this stupid agriculture class. Like, nobody took seriously. Nobody cared about the biochemistry of sheep. Nobody cared. We didn't care. But my friend was like older and he had a car. I might not have been driving yet. And his name was Big White. And everybody thought he was a cool stoner guy, always sleeping through class. And I sat next to him and he was pretty cool. Like, he was kind of a dope. But we would talk about weed and blah, blah, blah. He would rip me off and be like, $40 for this much weed. And I'd do, of course, buy it with my lunch money or work money. But he said, hey, B, tomorrow I'm going to come in and I'm going to bring you an Adderall. $10. Bring $10. It's like, hell yeah, okay. I had no idea. I didn't know it was like technically legal speed. And I got to skip through this story quickly, but I did that. And some people say, like, oh, the first time I did Oxycontin, I found God. Like, they say that. Like, it was so profound. They felt so euphoric. And that's how I kind of felt when I took Adderall for the first time. Because I had low energy, stuff like I was stoned all the time. Of course, I had low energy. But the day I took that, I remember just speeding around the hall. I didn't even go to class for the rest of the day. I just walked around the halls and I listened. This was the first time I could hear music in my head without listening to it, and I could see notes as colors. I'm walking around, pacing around in school, just going up to anybody and talking to them, talking to girls that prior to that day I was afraid of. And I just kept hearing Beat on the Brat by the Ramones. Beat on the brat, beat on the brat, beat on the brat with a baseball bat, oh yeah. So I was listening to that, and then I would go to high school for half a day and take my BA English and algebra, psychology, and the next half of the day we would get on a bus and go to film school. So I kind of went to this film class. It wasn't like whatever, freaking Harvard film school. It was TV multimedia where you would learn how to make film, blah, blah, blah. And me and my friends and sister, and we made movies. Like from the age of 13 to like 16. Like we we were essentially like the weird art kids that didn't talk to girls. But we were our own clique. And to make a little side note, I remember when I got into the ninth grade, I was a small kid. And there was a lot of bullying going on. There was a lot of bullying in life prior to that, too. But on this, I remember thinking, this is like schoolyard 70s bullying. Like the upperclassmen jocks with the girl on their shoulder make fun of the little freshman. And I remember this big fat douche in the locker room would come up to me, and he was big and fat, and he would go, "Get in my belly," like the Austin Powers quote. And they'd all laugh. And I immediately said, all right, it's a dog eat dog world out there. So instead of getting bullied, I'm going to become a shark myself. I made that conscious decision because I was young, I was small, but I had a Napoleon complex and I was always trying to fight people and prove that I was tough or whatever. So I essentially made my own group of big dumb kids, and that we were kind of like a gang, and I was the leader. And I remember we would like score ourselves. Like I was the leader, Cody was number 2, Michael was number 3, and we all stuck together and became this weird filmy art kid. Like we were into stand-up comedy and we had bands. And we made movies. So fast forward back to the Adderall. I need to get to this next part because this video is getting kind of long and I apologize. Take a break. So I forgot where we're at in this story. So fast forward, I'm 17 now. I'm about to graduate. I'm basically driving around in a piece of crap Ford Escort, going to school, half day at school, half day at film school, smoking weed with my friends all day, smoking weed and listening to the Beatles all the time. Back then, I would smoke and I would lay in bed and close my eyes with my headphones on, and I would picture whole movies and like old cartoons. And it was kind of like I got really into like the song Monster Mash and like 50s doo-wop. And I really liked the crude animation of like the 50s and stuff, 60s, early 60s. And I would picture these like little movies in my head, just like it would like a stream of consciousness, colorful, hearing notes as colors when I'm high and stoned and on Adderall. So I'm going to school, going to work at this nursing home, starting to become an adult, starting to have like a real adult identity, essentially. Um, but one night, and mind you, I had not really had a girlfriend up to this point. Um, because I was anxious and afraid of women, I believe. I think I was. That's what the problem was. So one night I come home from work and I'm in my uniform, got my keys in my hand. I have puree old elderly people food all over my stomach from knocking food in the trash and doing dishes. I'm pretty sure I have like a wet belly too. And I come home and I hear a girl's voice in my sister's room. And I just kind of strolled in not knowing what was going on. And I walked into her room and her friend was there. And she was just decked out in like these big leather punk boots with the little spikes on them, tight black jeans, and a ripped shirt with this Tegan and Sarah hairdo. And my sister's like, "This is my friend. She's gonna stay here for a while." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So we're listening to music, and at the time, I was just starting to get into like Deer Tick and Johnny Flynn and sort of more unknown indie-esque music. But we're sitting around smoking, me, my sister, and this beautiful girl. And she's playing all this cool music and talking about her record collection and blah, and how much she likes weed and drugs and she tripped on acid and blah, 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 blah. And I felt like at that moment, I met my soulmate. Like two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl. Like, but I was like, I immediately said, I'm like, this girl's way out of my league. Or maybe, I don't know. I forgot how I looked back then. I've always been a pretty average looking dude. I don't mind how I look. I'm not self conscious or anything. But there were certain girls you would be like, oh, she's out of my league. She's out of my league. She's out of my league. This girl was definitely out of my league. But eventually that night, I remember we were listening to music and this Deer Tick song was playing. And I impersonated the singer. I was like, what a crying shame, what you've became. Which is pretty much exactly what the Deer Tick singer sounds like. And I was like making her laugh and all this stuff. And we eventually kind of separated from my sister. And I think my sister went to bed. And we drove to like this local liquor gas station place. And of course, I'm nervous. I'm acting fake. Like, I'm acting like 10 different personalities and trying to blah, 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 blah. I don't even know who I am at this age, 17, the tender age of 17. But we went into this store and we didn't have money and we couldn't buy alcohol. And she just kind of walked and grabbed a 40 of Old English, put it in her purse, and walked out. I'm in the car like, man, this girl's a badass. Like, this is awesome. And we went back home and she's talking and ranting a lot. Kind of self centered, to be honest. I didn't get many words in, really. I didn't even know what to say, even if I had the chance to be interesting, I wouldn't have known what to say. And when you're young and there's a pretty girl around you, you're just like, agree with everything she says. Just listen to her, laugh, nod. Mm-hmm. Agree with her. Just keep agreeing. So we're driving home and I'm drinking malt liquor, Old English with her. And we're just sitting down in like I had like this little cozy basement with beige walls, leather chairs, and a pool table room. And we're just sitting there and watching this DVD about the band, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, which I think it was like a live show DVD, Karen O backstage. And this girl that I'm with really loves, like, she was like a feminist. But she was a feminist before feminism was like popular. And she was really into like that strong Joan Jett punk female singer attitude. And she looked the part. Like she looked like kind of a scruffy punk girl, but she was beautiful. And we're just sitting there drinking a 40, and eventually we start kissing and stuff. And I'll fast forward a little bit through this story, but I lost my virginity that night, and it was like the most pathetic virginity losing experience ever to happen in human recorded history. I think I like came immediately and just ripped the condom off and then kept going. And I don't know I had no idea what I was doing. But put yourself in my shoes for a second. You're a 17-year-old stoner who's never had a girlfriend. Smoke weed all day, and you come home, and all of a sudden, this beautiful punk girl is like staying at your house for a while. I remember just thinking, like, pinch me, I'm dreaming. Like, I was like, this is too good to be true. And immediately, this girl became everything to me. We started dating immediately. I kind of like let go of all my friends to spend time with her. But she was like more into harder stuff than I had done. At that point, I'd probably not smoked weed. I did mushrooms, Adderall, just really Mickey Mouse small stuff. But she was more like, she showed me the movie Train Spotting. And I just remember the whole movie. She was like, I really want to do this. Like, I want to do H. And I'm like 17 and I don't want to do that stuff. But in my head, and get how messed up this is. Like I said, the Beatles kind of got me into smoking weed. Well, John Lennon was like strung out from 1967 to like 1971. So, and I was getting into Lou Reed, William Burroughs, bunch of bad influences in my life. They were my idols. If you were a badass songwriter, musician, you were a drug addict, you were awesome in my eyes. So I had this girl that I'm with all the time now. I even remember like a week into being with her, like dating her. I remember thinking, God, I kind of miss like jerking off and watching porn. I miss being by myself when I come home. But so I was happy, but I was like, this is kind of too much. And this girl who became my girlfriend for a very long time wanted to do coke and E and H and all this stuff. So me and her pretty much developed like this toxic relationship where we were always fighting and drinking, and we did was text people for drugs and then drive around town scoring and doing them. Like we went balls to the wall almost immediately. It wasn't like a small little thing like that gradually happened. It was like boom, go, go, boom, boom, go. So I don't know really where I'm at in this story. This video is almost 37 minutes long, but I'm going to cut some stuff. But maybe I'll make a part 2 if you guys are interested. I hope this was a compelling story. Um I wanted to just highlight basically age 15 to like 18. And I'll leave a little cliffhanger when I met this girl, how we slowly devolved into just complete 24/7 junkies. So, If you like this video, like, comment, do the subscribe thing. Keep following my channels. Somehow I'm posting every day. I don't know how I get the energy, but something inside me is, all right, tell all your stories. Tell your story. Make these vlogs. I don't know what's going on with my head right now, but I'm very just okay, even though I'm like withdrawal all day just trying to get sober, I still have the push to make videos. So do the like, comment, subscribe thing. Subscribe for the part 2 and the 3 and the 4. I'm going to go ahead and title this How I Became an Addict as a Young Man. The early days or something. Thanks for watching.